Hello, everybody. Welcome to Anna's Internet Cafe, a show where we hang out, have fun, and dive into all things internet culture. I'm your host, Anna Diaz, and today I'm joined by Splatoon extraordinaire, Taco.
Hello, I'm Taco. Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about all things Splatoon lore. Obviously Splatoon 3 just came out, and so I'm really excited to have Taco on the show. Like, I feel like I'd be hard pressed to find someone who is like as invested in the Splatoon community as you. Is there anything like you want to share about you and your work? I know you kind of do like a bunch of different things.
I don't even know how to do a self pitch. I don't know if you could name one thing I do. I just kind of exist on the internet. People often ask me, what am I? They're like, are you a YouTuber? Are you a Twitch streamer? That's debatable on both. I do art online, pixel art, and I just really like games. So I know a lot of like obscure knowledge and lore and just deep dive on different things all the time. And I guess that's just gotten me a following over time, and that's really it. It just stems from enjoying what I do, and that's it. But otherwise, I do stream. I do occasionally upload on YouTube, but mostly I just play games and then talk about them. That's it.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of... I'm fixing your video because it's like a pixel off. I feel like you're kind of like a connoisseur of viral posts. Like, I feel like you're really good at like, I don't know, like picking like unique details in games in a way that's like relevant to fans.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of recognizing what we all the best example I can think of, or the best comparison I can think of, and I'm not comparing myself to this profession, but comedians are really good at noticing what we all notice but don't notice. It's like right in front of us, right? And they'll make a joke about it, right? So it's kind of like that, but for video games. Is we all notice the same things I notice. I just point it out first, right? Is kind of the way I've weaponized viral posts in a way. You know, I'll notice that I like something, and I'm like, I bet you other people would like it too, and that's really it. So
yeah. And then you mentioned your pixel art. Y'all, after the show, you should definitely go check out because your Pikachu stickers sell out pretty quickly. So I imagine you don't have any on like live for sale right now. But you should follow him and then check out your store.
There'll be more. There'll be more in the future. They are sold out at the moment, but there will be more in the future.
But yeah, and then you also run the Splatoon account.
Cafe.
Yeah,
Splatoon Cafe account. It has become a little bit of a wasteland as of a few weeks ago because Splatoon now has their own Twitter account, and that's kind of what I was replacing for a while. They used to have a Tumblr. They were a little bit behind, you know.
Or maybe they just know their audience. They're like,
yeah,
this is for queer
valid.
teens.
Yeah.
Like, we're just not going to bother with anywhere else. Just stick on Tumblr.
But yeah, so my job has been taken. I would just be stealing their posts at this point. So now I just occasionally will post a joke on that account. But up until then, I was like, there was this one other Splatoon account that it was me versus them on who could get the news out the fastest. And I built kind of a following there. And it was way before I had any Twitter followers on my main account. And I just really like Splatoon. So
awesome. Well, I'm so excited you're here today. We're just sort of going to get into it. I feel like, so Chad actually gave us a really good starting point, which is from Eremite E. Splatoon lore. Isn't it just some dude boned a squid? Actually, the answer is no. And Splatoon 3 like really showed us that. There's like a complicated world history that goes into Splatoon, which I feel like is fun. And, you know, it could just be like a shooter, but Nintendo is really like playing up the lore of this world, specifically, it feels like, throughout all three franchises. And just like a disclaimer before we go on, there will be some like spoilery discussions in the back half of this show. So we'll start off with like the lighter stuff, just like more general stuff, Splatoon 1 and 2, and just like general like fun stuff about the world that you might not know about. And then as we like progress the conversation, we'll get more into spoilers. And we will try and like avoid spoilers for the story in Splatoon 3, but you know, like there are connections obviously between like the lore and what happens in the game. So yeah, so consider yourself warned. If you're really nervous about that, then I'll do another disclaimer. So yeah, we're gonna dive really deep into the ink today. Sorry.
No, it was worth it. It was worth it. 10 and 10.
Yeah. So I guess like maybe that's the starting question is like, what are the origins of Splatoon and like the world of Splatoon? Obviously I've come with research, so we can talk about it. I don't want to like quiz you or put you on the spot. But
I'm gonna get a lot of names incorrect. No matter how good I am at figuring out lore, names just do not stick with me. So I'm gonna be describing things as like, you know, general brushstrokes of descriptions rather than their names. It's just something that's never stuck with me. The nice thing about Twitter is I can look up the name before I post about it, but on a live discussion, I mean, I have like 12 Wikipedia tabs open on the right side, so it's not impossible that I can just like, you know, secretly look it up. But
which we're no like strangers to that on this show. Last week we were just like searching Miku videos and like just showing my entire search bar and browser. Anyways, but yeah, and that's the thing is this is more like think of this as like broad kind of takeaway viewers. Yeah, like we're not going to be nitpicking the details because we're not like writing something down right now. So where does the world of Splatoon start?
Okay, so depending on what you mean by origin, right? There is kind of the... Oh man, I don't even know where to start. Do you mean like, do you want to know like where they really came from?
Yeah,
because you know, the spoilers are in the back half, right? So I don't want to like...
Yeah, no, okay. Let's start with what the context of the world that the games are coming from. So like what's happening in the world of like Splatoon 1 and 2 and 3. So like basically for those unfamiliar, there's like a really extensive background lore. So like there's like different eras, and essentially like where we are is like Splatoon is kind of like a post apocalyptic world.
Yes. We're like redoing where we're at right now.
Yeah.
They are almost contemporary with us, but thousands and thousands of years into the future, right? I don't think this is too spoilery, but I don't really know if there's been any concrete decision making on how this is happening, but we kind of speak to them through a fax machine that kind of bridges the gap between us and them. So, you know, whenever they have a Splatfest, what happens is they'll cut to a different camera, right? So each game has their own idols, right? So whatever idol it is in whatever game, they'll cut to a different camera. There'll be a fax machine, and we are, or I guess, you know, somebody is faxing them some, you know, challenge from our time period to them, right? So that's why we end up with like Splatfest that are like SpongeBob versus Patrick, right? Even though they don't have SpongeBob versus Patrick, we communicate in that way. So a lot of the stuff that's going on with them is just repeats of what's going on with us. And also we all died out a long time ago.
Yeah, the humans, that's what's interesting is humans technically did exist in the Splatoon world, but then they died.
Yes.
And then we'll talk more in specificity in the spoilery part. But then we got humans.
Yes.
And we all find this out via various like logs and like lore books that are embedded into the games. So these are like a really intentional part of the games. It's not even like that vague, like, oh yeah, like we're piecing this together through like various theories like surrounding the landscape. It's like, no, like the game tells us this.
Yeah, it just tells you. They're like the different Sunken Scrolls. So each couple of levels, it's been a long time since I played Splatoon 1, so I don't remember how it works in Splatoon 1. But every couple of levels or once a level or something, you can get a secret, right? Each level or section has a secret. and it's usually a sunken scroll, and it'll be kind of some flavor text with a bunch of images, just kind of either teaching you something about the past or the recent past or the far past, or even just like sometimes you'll get like receipts of stores that are currently running, right? Like when you buy, shirts and hats and stuff like that, you might learn a little bit about the store owner or whatever. Just world building is the secrets in this game. So instead of like rupees or something, right? it's little tiny lore dumps.
Yeah. And I feel like, despite it being like primarily like an online multiplayer game, they are really good at delivering like all those like little nuggets. So Crowboy asks, I want to know how he died. I'm going to make chat guess for like about a minute. If you were to like look at the world right now, and if there were anything to cause a mass extinction event of humans, what do you think that would be?
I won't say anything. I'll give you guys a second.
Yeah, we'll give chat like 1 minute, and then if they don't get it, that's fine. No, it's not nuclear warfare. That's a good guess though. But there's like one other guess between that and nuclear warfare that I feel like are very fair. Squid sentient. No, so yeah, it's climate change. Thank you.
I think it might be something happened. I just found out about this. Continue talking. I'm going to go to one of my...
Yeah, no worries. So there is basically, as far as I know, there's a great flood. And like basically this flood was brought on by like the all too quick, rapid progression of technology. So like they don't say like climate change killed humans in the Splatoon lore universe, but like it's very much like insinuated at like multiple steps of the process. And so like Splatoon, but it's a little more complicated than that, and we learn that in the third game. And so like we'll get into that later when things are more spoiler heavy. And again, like I feel like you could hang around for the spoiler section, because it's like, are you going to go and find every single logbook, which I did. Did you do this?
I did, yeah. I 100%ed it for sure.
Like you maybe not. So maybe you don't care about that spoiler. Because you have to, not just beat the single player co-op, but go through and clean up everything. But so
the structure of Splatoon's kind of tough, because a lot of this stuff is gonna be lost forever now, because the one downside of Splatoon being live service is there are things you can't access anymore that are definitely heavily part of the story. So, some things you might be okay with being spoiled, because the only way you can go re-experience them is like a recording of someone's stream or a YouTube video or a Wikipedia article.
It's by searching Anna's Internet Cafe on YouTube and hitting the smash and the like and subscribe button. So let's see here. I never even knew Splatoon was live service. Yeah, 3 really, the latest installment really leans into the live service elements. Like it has a battle pass now. It's not called a battle pass, it's called a catalog. But you have like 2 months to complete it.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. And you can get a dab if you get to not level 98. So
oh, you're totally right. I never put that together, but you're totally right.
Yeah. But and Hedron, I just admire the art style of music from afar. Yeah, and I honestly, that's something that I feel like really draws people into the game, is like its really unique flair. And it is something that is sort of like being buoyed by the world that it's creating. So like basically like where we're at when we play Splatoon is like this land that, to really simplify things, has flourished like after the apocalypse and is now kind of like coming alive again. And that's kind of reflected in like the burgeoning of like art and culture. Because like descriptions of Splatoon 3 are very much like, oh yeah, this is like a multicultural place where people are allowed to like be free and like anarchy reigns type thing. Yeah. Sorry, I was rambling for a while because I was
no, you're fine.
Time, so you shouldn't
interrupt. That stuff is so cool. That stuff is awesome. It's really cool how they've like in universe justified, the culture of Splatoon being kind of, again, basically where we're at right now, but thousands and thousands of years in the future. I was going back through the Sunken Scrolls, the secrets of Splatoon 2, and one of them is about Instagram. And Instagram's still going, but we've kind of moved on, or at least we're moving on from Instagram. Like TikTok and stuff like that's happening now. But it's very reflective of where we were at that time. In Splatoon 1, they dug up human fossils, and they're talking about the human going through some ritual, and it's a human playing the Wii U, So it's, granted, that's not happening in modern day Splatoon, but, it's, each game is very reflective of, like, what's happening right then, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. No, and that's even something I wrote down in my notes was, like, I was looking through the Sunken Scrolls, and, like, my note is just, like, hashtags were at one point gratuitously used in the Splatoon universe, because there's one like Sunken Scroll that's just like covered in hashtags. It's like hashtag pond snail like a boss, hashtag Eddie is gnarly, hashtag. I won't read them all because there's literally 12 of them.
Yes. I tweeted that out on my Splatoon account. I don't know if anyone got it. Maybe I'm a little too early. Maybe no one's gotten that Sunken Scroll yet, but I thought it was funny.
I'll have to go back and read Infinite Soup says least realistic thing there is that anyone was playing the Wii U. That's rough. But,
a rare fossil.
Yeah.
A one of a kind.
I think that's just representative of how archaeology, isn't perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe we are remembered for loving the Wii U.
They're like, this must have been a big thing,
Yeah, because they're all in like garbage dumps. Like no one
That's funny.
But I would encourage chat to continue to send us questions as we go through anything. So Asian Perk, are we delving into story spoilers or avoid that topic? Back half there will be spoilers, but we're gonna try and avoid like spoilers that directly reference what is happening in like Splatoon 3, but obviously there are like connections, but we won't be like, this is the final boss fight for Splatoon 3, etc., etc.
Doing my little bit of recap, I noticed how much is connected. I thought a lot was connected. I made a tweet, I think last night, where I was like, oh yeah, Splatoon 2 is definitely required reading. Mm-hmm. And Splatoon 1, I'm like, you can make an argument that it's required reading. Mm-hmm. Going back, I mean, like, it's only if you care about lore enough to, if you're watching a show about Splatoon lore, you probably care, right? Mm-hmm. But, it's all, a lot of people just like it for the fashion or the music or the multiplayer, right? So you can totally skip all of this. But if you care about the lore, they are referencing things from Splatoon 1 that we're, like, finding answers about now, which Splatoon 1 has, it's not, I wouldn't say bare bones, but it's, it's very matter of fact. Each level is, here's a sentence of lore, here's the level, here's the boss, and then you go on to the next one, right? Mm-hmm. But Splatoon 3 has a lot connecting all the way back to Splatoon 1. They weren't kidding when they said it was like the end of the original story, right?
Yeah. And it is interesting because like they could have just like left the world where it is and like kept it more as a shooter. But I think like if there's like any sort of thesis of this show, it's that actually Splatoon, like the developers have been planning out like the Splatoon lore in the world of Splatoon like all along. And even though it wasn't as big of a driving force in the first Splatoon as it is now, like they have cared about like creating like a consistent narrative from like 1 all the way up through 3, and including the DLC as well.
It's kind of like shocking how well they pulled it off.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an afterthought where, like sometimes, a season will end and they'll leave like a hanging thread. They don't actually know where that thread's going, but they'll like leave a hanging thread, right? Mm-hmm. There are things in Splatoon 2 that are very much set up for Splatoon 3 that pay off, and they must have been thinking about it back then. They had to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's just like, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. We're getting some good questions, but I think we can't actually answer them in this, like in the front half. Because Eremite E asked, well, this one we can answer. Why do the kids' eyes look like burglar masks? It's because they're squids.
Yeah, the squids. Whenever you see like a cartoony squid, I feel like a lot of times they have the eye mask thing, right?
Yeah. But then as for like the origin of the Inklings, like were they kids evolve or like were they made? We'll have to talk about that later because I feel like that's a little bit, I don't know. Is that spoilery?
There's early Splatoon 1 art. There is more I can elaborate on, but there's early Splatoon 1 art that was just like, sent out everywhere where it's just like normal squid, like like how it was like the monkey like growing up into a human, right? Like that
it's like
art, they're like mimicking
squid, literally.
Yeah. It like slowly turned it. So they came from squids, right? That I can say.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't want to elaborate. But.
Yeah. But oh, sorry, I literally lost my point mid-sentence. But it is impressive that they've been able to build up this world because, like, obviously, like, they picked the concept of the squids because it made sense for the gameplay. Like, originally they were going to be, like, rabbits. And so, like, the early concept were the rabbits, and that didn't really, like, work with the ink. And, Mario couldn't be in Splatoon because actually Kyle Hilliard did this interview for Game Informer because, like, Mario doesn't blow up. Like, Mario can't be exploded.
So, really? That's awesome.
That's what they said in the interview.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so they knew it was going to be original character. The rabbits didn't really work. And so eventually they came up with the squids because it fit with the ink motif. And they added the swimming up the wall mechanic. But now we have this like very robust world that's like very squiddy, I guess, to be kind of crude. So
there's no stone unturned. They've fleshed out every corner now. They went from their, because I think it was like tofu at first, right?
Yeah.
Because they were just using placeholder blocks.
Yeah.
So it was like tofu at first, but now that they've had their, I feel like they realized they were onto something with the first game, and they've just fleshed everything out. Like a lot of the, because again, I just had like a recap, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the early Splatoon 1 stuff is I wouldn't say basic, right? But it's, the fashion isn't as fashionable. The idols, the Squid Sisters, when they're like on screen, they're just talking heads. They're not quite, the world isn't quite as lived in as it is, especially now. Like the hub world of Splatoon 3 is like as lived in as you could probably pull off on Nintendo Switch, right? With still people walking around and having their like messages show up and stuff like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was bare bones, but it was just like, they were starting to get the idea of just, really going ham on the culture in Splatoon 1. But by the time they got to 2, they took off.
Yeah. Yeah. And now Splatoon 3 is just kind of like taking it even further in another step.
Yes. Yes.
So, any crossovers so far for Splatoon? I don't know. You might be more familiar with this.
So, yes, the Splatfests. They've had Teenage Ninja Turtles. They've had SpongeBob and Patrick. They've had Pokemon. I think there's something else, but there is a spoiler, and I can't say anymore. I don't even know if a lot of people know it, but there is definitely a spoiler in 3. Is it
a spoiler for 3 or a spoiler for 2?
What's the 2 one? I might have forgotten about it.
No, I don't know. I genuinely don't know what you're talking about, and so I'm curious.
There's
yes. No, I do know what you're talking. Sorry, there's 1 and 3. Yeah. Yes. Okay, guys. Sorry, we're just like not talking about anything because we care about not spoiling things so much right now. Yeah. So
Transformers. Yes. Forgot about Transformers.
I mean, technically we're 30 minutes in, so we could like transition into like talking more about like the Alternalogs and the Sunken Scrolls if we want, and just like refrain from, I don't know, talking about the story, the end of the story. But
Oh, that's tough still. You'll have to let me know when, because I think at a certain point you cross a threshold of like,
yeah,
none of this will make
disappointing.
sense if you don't explain it, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's true. Um, Let me see. I'm just gonna go through my notes for a second and see if
sure.
there's like any. Are there like any general points that for like you as someone who's like been in this space for a while that like you especially appreciate about like the Splatoon lore and like sort of like the way it's been approached, or just like even details that you like?
So, it, I feel bad for saying this, but, you know, it's kind of a word I try to avoid using as much as possible. But if we're going to talk about metaverses, right, I would say it is aside from like, like maybe like Final Fantasy 14, or I'm sure there's another example. I would, I've dabbled in Second Life, right? But as far as like a lived in place, maybe even more than Final Fantasy 14, um, because it's kind of simplified in the sense that like, you can't, do farming, you can't do housing, you can't do all this other stuff because it's so focused on exactly what it wants to do. It feels almost like a form of social media, right? People go there and like express themselves, and other people pay attention. In Final Fantasy 14, you can see someone's armor or minion floating by, but you're not there to like, unless you're going into like a raid together or something like that. You're not there to like mingle with random people all the time, right? You can, but Splatoon, it's a second nature to see people's messages, and they're always incredibly relevant, right? Like a
Yeah.
certain large event took place
Yeah.
and everything in the plaza was making jokes about it, right? Like it feels like Nintendo's Twitter almost, right? And a lot of people don't care for Nintendo's like I mean, I understand, like I totally know where people are coming from, but a lot of people don't care for Nintendo's like drip feed of content, right? But I would argue they've perfected it with Splatoon, where it feels like this clothing company really did just release new clothes, right? Like this feels like new weapons really were just created, even though they were probably created like a year ago, right? It feels like a parallel to our world, right? Where it's constantly moving forward. I think Splatoon 2 took place exactly the same amount of time between the ending of Splatoon 1 and the start of Splatoon 2. So it was like, if it's like Tuesday, May 2nd, it was Tuesday, May 2nd, 6,000 years ago, or in the future, right? So it has a very, a lot of people's main criticism is that it's like, it's Splatoon 2.5, right? Because not a lot changed. But in the in-universe perspective, it feels like, this is where Splatoon would be, 5 years after Splatoon 2. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like it evolved that much.
Yeah, I'm curious because a lot of folks in chat are bringing up Miiverse. And do you think kind of like this background lore and like this kind of like richness of the world is like really what contributes to like this kind of like, it's like this virtual sense of timeline that lends itself to like a metaverse-y feeling? Or do you feel like Nintendo could create the same sort of like world without like, I don't know, like without all this background context?
I think they need it because
Did Miiverse
I think that's why
is what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, the Miiverse, first of all, the Miiverse, I think that's why they kept it, because it's like so hard to draw on the Switch, right? I think they kept it specifically because of how much it adds. There are Splatfests where, because again, the idols, right? The idols will talk to each other and reference Miiverse posts, right? I think one of the times, I don't remember who, which were the idols, but they're like, I wish squids were real, which is like a really famous Miiverse post, right? So like they're referencing stuff that's actually happening, right? I don't remember which one happened first, like chicken or the egg, but I don't know if it was in game, but I think Marie mentioned that she loved seeing Marina like on her DJ set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a concert in real life,
Mm-hmm.
again, an extension of the game, right?
Yeah.
There was a concert in real life, and in the concert, Marie runs over to Marina and like watches her do the DJ set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "This is awesome," or whatever, right? And so like every aspect, it extends into real life. Every aspect of Splatoon is like part of the lore, right? There is, again, no stone unturned. Spoilers, I don't want to keep going, but there are other examples where everything ties back into everything. There was one more point, but I forgot it, so I'll get back to it if I remember. But yeah, I think the Miiverse stuff, the real life culture reflects on Splatoon culture in a very heavy way.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, I don't know, and that's what is so interesting about like the story in the world of Splatoon is that it's like it's mirroring, right? Like it's creating like a very, very consistent like timeline within its world, right? Like even if it's in its references and whatnot, like at like the concert example that you just mentioned. But then like I think what's also interesting is there's the other layer of that. It is like this like very relevant, like it's a very like relevant post apocalyptic world.
Yes.
Like so like of course like not like we're not all squids right now.
Yeah,
but like but like in the sense that like it's kind of like the things that they have dealt with are things that feel very like I think like resonant, especially with like maybe younger folks who like are kind of like staring down the barrel of like, I don't know, climate catastrophe or like weirdly exploitative corporations. You don't really know what your work is contributing to, looking at the Salmon Run games, like, or, or like even freelance contract labor, right? And so it's kind of cool, like how the game sort of evokes not just like the cultural references, but also like because Fortnite, right, will reference contemporary things. Like they'll have like a TikTok trend in their dance, introduced as like an emote. But like they won't have like, I don't know, they don't quite build out the world, I guess, in the same way, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Like 1,000%. I keep thinking of spoilers, but there are definitely like real world things happening that are reflected in Splatoon. And like, it's a Nintendo game, right? Like they're gonna kind of, make it a joke, right? Like the Salmon Run, being exploitative or whatever, but it's in there, and the Miiverse posts reflect that, right? I think that's where that Nintendo can't say the final, like you can't say the quiet part out loud, right? But the Miiverse jokes will, yeah, I mean, I'm trying not. There's so many things tied to spoilers, but there's definitely some story moments in Splatoon 3 that as soon as I finished, I realized everyone was making jokes about in the plaza. So yes, 1,000%. It feels like, again, I feel like the Miiverse posts are mandatory because that's that allows the world to be alive in a way that I don't think, a Fortnite feels like a video game, right? It feels like that's not a bad thing. I have nothing against, Fortnite, but it just feels like you're playing a video game that cool things happen in real time. But Splatoon, again, feels like you're an extension of like a social media or the word I don't like saying, so metaverse.
Yeah. When I send possible titles to Ben tomorrow, I'm gonna be one of them's gonna be is Splatoon 3 the metaverse? Like, rack up those views on YouTube.
I can't. I just ate my cord. I can't think of a better example than Splatoon 3 as far as like, causing people to talk. I just can't. I don't ever remember. The passing of a very famous person being referenced so much in Fortnite, right? Like those things didn't happen.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like even though there's like voice chat and whatnot in Fortnite, like I have always appreciated like kind of how more mediated and intentional Nintendo is with the way that it channels communication. Obviously, if you're trying to play super competitively, like you gotta have voice chat, and so it can be kind of annoying to do things the way that they are. But like that being said, you know, like I don't know, like Nintendo, like, you know, in Fortnite, you're in your lobby and people are like emoting and stuff, but you're not gonna like see goofy posts or anything like that.
You're not going to come out of it. You're not learning anything from watching someone dance, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to dance, I guess. You could learn to dance. I mean, a lot of people did, so.
Asian Perk asks, doesn't Fortnite have... Oh, no. It's more of a statement. Fortnite does have that super weird MLK Jr. tribute.
I do remember that. Yeah. You were correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really weird, and I think it missed the mark in a lot of ways. And, you know, Splatoon isn't going to, like, go as far to kind of, like, address something like that, but it is, you know, it is going to, like you were saying, allow folks to do the talking themselves.
It nudges you in the direction.
Yeah. Airmite E asks, are squid kids, inklings, all actual kids, or are they fully grown for their species?
They're kids. There's one of the main characters is an old man.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, you know, more age range to go. Some of the idols are like 21, 24, something like that. So yeah, there's you got, it's, you know, just think of humans, but squishier with no bones.
Yeah. But some of the idols, they also look young. They still look young. But they're idols. They're always going to look young.
Yeah. Pearl, one of the idols from Splatoon 2, looks like she's like a 8-year-old gremlin, but she's like the oldest or something like that. She's like 21 or something at the time, which now she's like 26 or something. Yeah, so they don't necessarily look their age, but, well, except for the old guy. The old guy definitely looks his age.
The worst best thing about the old guy Cuttlefish is like kind of like starts to look more and more like kind of like jerky, like dried smoke. Cuttlefish, I get is I don't actually know if
names. I can't help you.
Well, this is if we have any like invertebrate biologists, it's cuttle. It's with T. If I don't know if a cuttlefish is a squid technically, if it's a subspecies.
I think cuttlefish. I can Google it. Cuttlefish. Oh yes. Oh, I've seen these, and they like do is this the one that changes colors?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, okay, on that note, it's 8:20. I think we're going to start the spoiler section of the series, of this podcast, if that's okay. Or actually, okay, wait, there's one more thing I want to talk about before we get into it. And it's like the kind of background lore behind what we do in the game. So the Turf Wars. What are the origins of Turf Wars in Splatoon series? So for those who haven't watched or played the game, the primary way to, like, the most popular, the first marketed way to play the game is like, and how it was originally sold was a thing called Turf Wars. And so basically it's like pretty simple. You just like go and you try to ink as much of your color ink as much as possible. And you fight against a team. It's teams of 4 versus 4, and whoever covers the like ground with their ink, whoever covers more of their color ink wins. So that's what a turf war is. But wait, okay, we're not on spoilers yet. We're just talking about the origin of turf wars before we go on. So. Chat's like bye. But then I went into my notes and I was like, oh, actually, we have some basic stuff we haven't talked about yet. Turf Wars, which is really fun, is like actually technically there's like a world reason for those. So, do you
I do not remember.
Okay, no,
I remember it being very old. There's like hieroglyphs of it, right? Like from like thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember the reason why they started.
I'm gonna become like really annoying Professor Blake. But before we go on and get to the spoiler thing, like basically like you know, so we're in post-apocalyptic world. Well, basically what happens is like, without getting into the details, which is actually more spoilery, it's like we're doing reverse history here. Like humanity gets wiped out. the Inklings and the Octolings, which the Octolings are like octopus. They're exactly the same as Inklings, except they're octopus. Get rot. They develop and become a new species. They inhabit the earth, and there is harmony for a while. But then, like, basically the water is kind of receding and going up and down, and we get what are known as the Great Splat Wars. And essentially, like, these two different divergent species of invertebrate humanoids duke it out. And that is the origin of turf war. So I think it's just really cool that even though, like, this originally obviously was, like, conceived as, like, a mechanic and, like, a way to play the games, is now, like, very much embedded into, like, the logic and, like, the history of the world. Because there was, like, this species competition. Yeah.
There's no stone unturned. I can't think of anything that isn't justified.
Yeah.
There's a very early Sunken Scroll in Splatoon 3 that justifies why the Octarians, which are the your normal enemies, right? Mm-hmm. Your run of the mill enemies. They're basically a tentacle. So not the Octolings, but it's like an octopus tentacle, right? So their tentacles kind of hanging forward, and they got like two eyes right here, right? Mm-hmm. The reason they made a lore justification for why their tentacle is hanging down like this, and it's because they're wanting to look like delinquents with pompadours. Mm-hmm. That's it. They just justified it.
Do you think, I am curious, like, what are your thoughts on doing this kind of like retroactive lore building? Like, obviously some of these things came pre-lore. Like, do you think that like takes away from it at all? Or like, what are your thoughts on that kind of process?
I don't think, because I think they've always been very upfront. I think there's like a little sprinkling of, we're not taking this seriously, right? And I don't mean like they very much obviously take it seriously. You know, like there's tons of love put into every corner of the game, but you know, there's a little bit of, we know, like, you know, like this is kind of a joke, right? It's kind of, we're having fun, you know, and I think that, you know, it just writes it off as, you know, everything they do is just for fun, and that makes it okay, and it works for me, right? Like, there are inconsistencies sometimes, and it's just like sometimes they'll make a joke about it, you know. It's serious enough all the way to the point where it stops being serious. They're just self-aware, I guess, maybe is a better way to put it. They're just very self-aware of, you know, again, there's references to jokes people are making in real life, you know. I think the retroactive stuff, they've always been very open about that, you know. It started as tofu and then bunnies, you know, like, so clearly it wasn't all thought out in the beginning, you know. So yeah, I think the non-seriousness, the self-awareness, I think is a better way to put it. The self-awareness, I think, justifies it all, basically.
Yeah,
we're having fun here.
Yeah, so the lore shouldn't be taken seriously. And it's like, yeah, I think the self-awareness, it's not that it shouldn't be taken seriously, but that, like, it's playful, I think. One, it's playful. The lore itself is playful, but it's relevant. Obviously, it's touching on, like, very serious societal issues. But I think it allows us actually, in a sense, to, like, actually kind of, like, look at these things. And so it doesn't mean, like, I mean, obviously it's a company, so like you said earlier, so they're not going to like try and like address these things in like a quote unquote serious way. But I don't know. Also, for a game that's like literally about, like, they know they're kind of like the hand they're showing, like they're putting out a game that's about squids shooting each other. So like, so the lore's going to be I think is about the same level of seriousness of the, okay. Anyways, okay. So now we're going to actually do spoilers, because everyone's saying the poor Octolings, blah, blah, blah. So we can like kind of get into this. So if you have not played all of Splatoon 3 and you're super sensitive about spoilers, now's your time to close this stream or mute it if you want to hang out and you're kind of strange like that. and we can like get into some of these other questions really kind of quickly. We're gonna speed run like the back half of this show.
Sure.
So yeah, Drew RWX is excited that you're here.
Thank you.
No, your lore streams are truly wonderful.
Thank you.
How long was your one for the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer a while ago?
So I think it was over a year ago now, was when that last trailer came out before today's. There was like a few screenshots or, 10 seconds recently, but that was like 5 hours long. And of course, I don't know if I got everything right, but the main takeaway, it seems to be on the money. Mm-hmm. And so it went from making my lore stream feel very crazy, like very like papers on the wall with like strings attached. Yeah, the meme, right? Yeah. Like, aha, I figured it out. So worth it.
Yeah. And chat's wondering if your lore streams are hosted anywhere. So they can
no, because I'm embarrassed about them.
So you'll have to catch it live next time.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll plug all of Taco's socials at the end of the stream. Okay. All right. Splatoon 3. We're going to be talking about probably 2 sets of items that you collect throughout the game. There's the Alternalogs and the Sunken Scrolls. The Alternalogs are about a lost land beneath the surface that we discover in Splatoon at the beginning of Splatoon 3. And the Sunken Scrolls are just like general world building. Would you say that's like the right way to describe those?
It doesn't make sense all the time. Like, they're ancient scrolls, but then they're talking about, receipts from a store that just opened, so it's just world building. You know? Again, one of those, like, it's being playful. Like, you can't take it super seriously.
Yeah.
The lore you can, but the fact that it's talking about a store that just opened, even though it's a sunken scroll,
Yeah. Which I think that's kind of the joke is like, if we were to go back and create like a scrapbook-esque archaeological sort of like catalog of what's happening now today, you would get the Sunken Scrolls.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, all right. Where do you want to start with Splatoon 3?
The thing I'm most excited about. So we can talk. I feel I don't want to just jump into the end, right? But like, am I allowed to talk about the final boss? Is that on the table?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Wait, I'm gonna give one more final disclaimer to chat. Like, get the heck out of here if you're worried about Splatoon spoilers. I don't even know if this is gonna tank our viewership. Let's see here. We have like 59 people watching. Okay.
Spoiler mode activated.
We're full spoiler mode. Okay.
Yes.
Now 56. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So the final boss, man, I feel weird just talking about this openly because it feels so soon.
I know it feels it feels kind of bad, but it's fine.
The final boss was teased in like the first 2 lines of Splatoon 2. Mm-hmm. So I went back again, my little bit of recap, and the intro to Splatoon 2 is like a narrator explaining the Inkopolis Plaza, I think is what it's called in Splatoon 2. It's New York City, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's going around the different sections, and it goes to Salmon Run, and he's like, oh, you can get a part-time job here. The owner seems sketchy and the job seems sketchy. I don't really know what that's about. Only go there if you really are like, prepared to work a sketchy job that we don't know the reason for. And then it finally pays off at the end of Splatoon 3 that you find out what that sketchy job was for all along. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to like world building, they're, whenever they started Splatoon 2, developing that like 8 years ago or something like that, right? I think it's super impressive how many like threads they've like set up to pay off in a future date.
Yeah, they were definitely playing the long game. And Asian Perk asks, do you feel like that was originally supposed to pay off in Splatoon 2? Like, do you think it's one of those things?
I don't think so, because there are other threads set up. There are too many threads set up that there's no way they could pay each one off in like a singular game. There is, I was like looking at different ones, right? Just kind of refresh myself. Lil Judd.
Yes.
There's something going on with Lil Judd, which is
okay. Can we talk about Lil Judd?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about Lil Judd. Okay, for those unfamiliar, Lil Judd is a cat in this world of octopi and squids, and he's just there, and we don't really know why he's the only mammal in this entire world.
So there's two cats. There's Judd, the larger cat, and then Lil Judd. So Judd, there is so we're really opening up everything, right? So there's a professor, okay? There's a human professor thousands of years ago, okay, who we don't know much about him, but he really liked his cat, okay? So when the world was ending, due to climate change, and I think there was war, right, which sped up the climate change, but he cryogenically froze his cat, and I assume he attempted to freeze himself. Something either he succeeded or he didn't. We don't know much about him.
Yeah, maybe Splatoon 4 will get that. Yeah.
But he froze Judd, and then they woke him up in the Splatoon time frame, so like thousands of years later, right? But the way they woke him up was accidentally like unplugging his cryogenically frozen container. And then when they plugged it back in, the details of how this works are a little bit blurry. So this is, you can correct me if you want, that's fine. But when they reactivated it, they reactivated a program that the professor put in there to make sure to make sure Judd wasn't lonely. And by doing that, in order to do that, he programmed it to clone Judd. And that's how we got Lil Judd in Splatoon 2, okay? So now, the moment Lil Judd was, I don't know if this is the correct word, conceived as a clone, right? He had awareness, okay? And because he had awareness, he always knew that he was a clone of Judd. And so because of that, he has an inferiority complex to Judd. So little by little, we find out how angry Lil Judd is, the little tiny cute one, at Judd. I think there's like in the art of Splatoon, there's a description that he's planning to backstab Judd, right?
whenever you
finish a match, if you ever notice, I know. that is the special sauce of Splatoon, is that everything's a little off, right? Everything's a little something, again, the end boss of Splatoon 3 is Mr. Grizz, and all during Splatoon 2, we're like, what's going on with Mr. Grizz? He's always, taking advantage of us and not telling us why, right? The corporation, right? But yeah, there's something going on with Lil Judd. Again, this is this spoil. Again, if you want to leave, I don't know why you're still here if you're not, worried about spoilers. But at the end of Splatoon 3, when you beat Mr. Grizz, you can still go to Salmon Run, and this is what I took a screenshot of. When you beat the game and you go back to Salmon Run, instead of a bear statue with a salmon in its mouth, it's a salmon statue with a bear in its mouth. And in one of the interviews, they suggested that Mr. Grizz's intercom, when he talks to you, has always been like a machine learning recording. So when he refers to you, it's not actually Mr. Grizz talking.
This is so elaborate.
Yeah, and I this is what, this is what gets me up in the morning, right? Yeah. I'm like so stoked about this.
Yeah.
When you beat him, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that he would still be talking to you after he's defeated. Well, there's one change. Well, there's a few changes, but there's one major change to the world. And like I said, everything's connected to everything in this world. And I don't mean like, Star Wars where everyone's related to Luke and, it's, everyone has to be someone. Not like that. I just mean like everything affects everything, right? So I wish I uploaded this earlier. I don't know if you can see this.
No, you're good. I can see it.
When you beat the end of Splatoon 3's story and Mr. Grizz is gone, Lil Judd gains a headset. And what people are speculating right now is that Lil Judd took over Mr. Grizz's job. So
dang, I can see
and if
it.
you,
But
yeah,
also, that's hilarious. As I imagine, like the developers being like, like this doesn't make that much sense anymore. Like,
yeah.
Okay, it's AI, and also we're giving it to Lil Judd.
Yeah, that's the playfulness of it, right? But
Yeah.
it's fun to buy in, right? It's fun to go along on the weird ride of, you know, the little cat clone is actually evil.
Yeah. And like, and it's like this is a little cat that, like, you know, was just like the like also just like like of course he's the referee for like the matches. Like it's the only non-squid, so it's gonna be like, you know,
partial, right?
Impartial to judge the split.
Yeah, impartial. If another part of this thread is that whenever you finish a match, Judd is always on your side. So no matter if you win or lose, you're always the good guys, right? And Lil Judd is always the bad guys. So, you know, they're laying some thread, right? I don't know if that's the correct term, but they're plotting, right? They have a lot of tools to work with to really make Lil Judd a thing. In one of the other Sunken Scrolls, one of the last ones you get is a bunch of like aliases for I don't know what kind of fish they're, blobfish, pufferfish, I'm not sure. The ladies, the like ladies with the southern accents, the fish ladies that are all over Splatoon 3's hub.
Oh,
so like when you go buy food or whatever, it's these like, you know, sweet southern fish ladies, but like the Sunken Scroll is kind of implying they're like either like under protection, or they're like criminals, or they're like secret agents or something. There's something going on with the little nice ladies everywhere, you know. So there's just threads everywhere. It's fun to buy in, I guess, is the best way to put it.
And I feel like it makes it very easy for the developers to be like, kind of pick and choose, like, okay, we kind of want to pursue this idea more. Actually, we're gonna allow that to be like this kind of silly mystery. Like they can kind of like pick their avenues, and it really allows them to sort of, you know, take the story and the world. Like they built out such a wide world, they can just pick whatever they want from it, like depending on what they think like is most appropriate for, you know, each title or like event, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fun. You go ahead. I will never stop talking.
No, it's good. I mean, I think kind of what this is getting at too, and something that's kind of special about Splatoon 3 is that it really has like prompted me to like think about the lore in a way that other, like, lore was obviously a part of Splatoon 2, but I don't know. I was just like, I was more playing it for like the levels and stuff, and like the whole setup. So for folks who haven't played like Splatoon at all, or Splatoon 3, is that like basically like the game starts and like very early on into the single player campaign, like you fall, this crater collapses, and you find yourself in like another world under the crust of the earth. It's like very sci-fi-esque. And then as you explore it and you like connect these logs and stuff, you start to piece together like this kind of stage play of all this shit that's happened. And like a lot of, obviously, like the characters we encounter in it like are pretty, you know, like pretty big players. Even though obviously in the world of the game, some of these events are playing out over eons of time. Or maybe not eons. It's thousands of years, though. Hundreds of years.
A lot of years.
Yeah, very many years. And so, like, it is like, this was like the first Splatoon game where I asked myself, I was like, wait, what the fuck is Lil Judd doing there? Like, what is Judd? Like, why is there a cat here? You know? And I think that's kind of the fun of it, is like, not only does it prompt that, but it definitely gives you like a lot more of the answers. Like, I don't know. It empowers you to go figure it out.
It's a fun origin story. It is a post-apocalyptic origin story, but the justifications for it are some of the more original I've ever heard. If you want to talk about how Inklings and Octolings came to be, you can if you want.
So I feel like this is the other big question on the table to discuss, is like, where do Inklings and Octolings come from? where does this world come from? It's kind of confusing. So honestly, like, correct me if I get anything wrong, because I'm literally just like going through this, like regurgitating it. So like I said, in the game, we're in like a different world, a la like Journey of the Center to the Earth. It's called Alterna, alternate world, etc., etc. We have this place called Alterna, and like through these kind of like logs of the world, which actually I want to ask you at the end who you think wrote them, because I don't know who wrote them. I'm kind of interested as to who wrote them, because it was kind of contemporary-ish with the world. But we'll get into that, because for folks who, I'm like, I see you ready to jump the gun. But like,
take your time.
We're in this other world, right? And my understanding is, okay, we finally get our Octoling origin story, which is that the original Alterna was a special community of like humans who survived the mass extinction event that, you know, killed, you know, the vast majority of humans. So there was a group of humans that went in a ship, and there's a group of humans who went under the earth. And these humans, like led by scientists, eventually kind of like developed a pretty self-sustaining world under the crust of the earth where everything was flooding. Okay. Then, in this world, these scientists discovered this magical ink liquid. They call them liquid crystals. And these liquid crystals, I feel kind of like, yeah, very much the meme recounting all this. These magical liquid crystals can harmonize with the human desire, with the desires of the people, of the humans who are living in this world. And they covered the world in these liquid crystals, and they harmonized with the desires of the humans, and they created the sky. Sorry, this chat message completely derailed me, asking, doesn't one of the logs end suggesting there was essentially a squid Jesus? We'll get back to that. So then, I'm probably going too far back into this, answering this question. That's fine. Basically, long story. So then these humans, they are humans. They have this sky, but then the humans live there for a while. And the next generation is like, we want to see like what's like, we don't want to live under this fake sky. We want to see what's really real. So they build a rocket. And this is the rocket that we see from the distance, always at any point, Splatoon 3. And they try to launch the rocket, goes horribly wrong, and they wipe out the rest of humanity.
Oops.
And then after that, the bit that I didn't talk about was all this time the squids and the octopus were thriving in this very lush, warm watered world because the ocean levels had risen, and also the humans partially lived off of them, eating them. Yeah. Anyways, long story short, those squids start to develop, and I think they merge with these liquid crystals. So
it's like microplastics, right? So like when everything got all
yummy,
like just stuff, it basically, like, you know, like when everything gets like down to like sand or whatever, right? Started like, you know, finding its way into the sea life, basically.
Yes.
So we're like polluting the seawater with all our garbage, and it doesn't go away.
Yes.
So yeah.
And that's where inklings and octolings come from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the human imagination or desires or whatever were like, you know, for years and years pumped into the liquid crystals.
Yes.
And so then when everything came crashing down, it, you know, microplastics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, oops, again.
Yeah. And so Kurt Baboon asks, doesn't one of the logs end suggesting that there is essentially like a squid Jesus?
There's
a single progenitor.
Yes.
Which I have a theory that it was Mr. Cuttlefish.
Really?
Well,
maybe. I don't know.
Too old. Maybe it's
there are hieroglyphs of like inklings from like way far back. The timeline.
Okay, because they say peculiar individual and a prophet. Oh, here's why I thought this, because at the end of the game, we see him dried up, shriveled up for a bit. And in the log, there's an image on that entry, and it's like the same. It looks the same.
Okay. I have it open, I think. Let me find out. The timeline's weird to me because they talk about turf wars existing thousands of years ago with like hieroglyphs, right?
Yeah. But then Cuttlefish helped start the turf wars.
Yeah, so that's where I'm not sure, like, what that's about, because Cuttlefish is in the Great Turf Wars, right? Yeah. So which one's the first turf war? I'm not sure about, right? Yeah. So was he that old, or is Yeah. It's confusing to me. Hold on. I'm in the scrolls. That's why I can't find it. It's in the logs. We're talking about the logs right now. So I don't have the logs open on my Wikipedia. Oh,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. I totally spaced. I'm not sure who the progenitor guy is, but he looks like very squid-like. He looks very squid-like in comparison to like everyone else. Everyone else kind of has like almost like a humanoid face, right? Like recognizable features. It's just like Octodad. It looks like Octodad, the progenitor one.
Yeah. And we don't get a good idea for why DJ Octavio doesn't look like the rest of the Octolings.
I think it's just he's in his squid form. I think he's just kind of like advanced. So when Captain Cuttlefish... Yeah, when Captain Cuttlefish goes into his squid form, he still has his beard and stuff. Yeah, I think it's just he's always in his squid form. I see. Because in an old Sunken Scroll, before this is what I mean by like Splatoon 1 became very relevant again. When the Great Wars were happening, before they happened, before the flood, right? Captain Cuttlefish and DJ Octavio were friends, and in that image it shows DJ Octavio in human form. How it becomes relevant to Splatoon 3 is, I think the thing that stopped the war, the Great War, was 3 lights, is what they refer to. And if you look at 3 lights, it's the symbol of the 3, I assume like, I don't know if clan is the correct words, but the different groups that the new idols belong to. Yeah. So there's like a symbol for like a manta ray, and a symbol for an eel, and a symbol for a shark, which is the 3 symbols of the new idols. Yeah. So that's what stopped the Great War. Yeah. But that's a Splatoon 1 thing. So again, it's like that meaning would be lost on you if you didn't, have a Wii U, right? So, which is, most of everybody.
So yeah, that's Splatoon. Honestly, we could probably talk for hours on this because there is so much. Like suddenly a 5-hour Zelda stream doesn't seem so off the mark.
It's easy. Just keep going.
But is there like anything else you want to talk about? I think like the one thing that I don't know, for viewers, I think would be good to talk about is just like the Octolings versus the Inklings, which is something, honestly, I'm kind of confused on. Is like, I get that they evolve separately, but where are they at now? Because I kind of zoomed through the DLC, and that's like where it does the majority of fleshing that story out. Like, they're like on good terms now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this is really the only explanation. But what flipped the switch in the Octolings' minds? So again, they used to be friends before the Great Turf Wars, right? They used to be buddy buddies. What flipped the switch in their minds was the calamari incantation, the song. So basically, the big Squid song, the finale song, changes their mind.
So for unfamiliar viewers, literally, canonically in the Splatoon universe, a war, like a hundreds, thousands year long war between 2 different species of creatures, is ended because one of them makes a banger and the other likes it. Yeah.
Oh, it all ties in, everything. And so that's how we get, I think, Marina. So Marina heard. This is the really cool part about Splatoon, is that the end of the game decides what the next game will be about. So at the end of Splatoon 1, there's a big battle, and they do the calamari incantation. So that's the big finale song, right? So what happens, two things happen. It's the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1, and it's Callie versus Marie. So whoever won became the main idol character for Splatoon 2. So you hang out with Marie, because Marie won. You hang out with Marie the entire time, and Callie goes off, and she's like sad she's not as popular, right? So she goes off on her own solo career to like find herself, and then she gets captured, right? So the winner of the Splatfest, so that's something that we decide as like, you know, fans or whatever, the winner of the Splatfest determined the story of Splatoon 2. During the finale of it, when they made the song, they woke up Marina. So in Splatoon 2, you have two new idols, which is Pearl and Marina is an Octoling, right? So she was woken up by the calamari incantation. So then fast forward to the end of Splatoon 2, and the final fest, the final Splatfest, is Chaos versus Order. So Chaos ended up winning, and that dictated the entire world building.
Wait, that's sick. I didn't know that. That's really
It's so
fun.
cool. That's what I mean. It's like, you know, the word metaverse, right?
Yeah.
Like an entire game. I mean, like they narrowed it down to two options, right? But entire game was decided by us, right?
Yeah. And they internalized like the results of that Splatfest and like every level of this world. Like literally the new like idols are like dirtbag leftist podcasters. Let anarchy reign. And I'm like, yes, let anarchy reign. And it's like, like fans picked and shaped that world. And now we have like this beautiful chaotic world.
I love it. I'm so glad. And I picked that team. I'm so glad we won. And it, you know, it makes you invested in everything, right? Mm-hmm. All the, you know, we're here because of me. You know what I mean? Like, I love that stuff. That stuff's great.
Yeah. Well,
can I talk about one last thing?
Yeah. I'm fine to keep going, but I just want to be sensitive to your time.
You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. This is seriously, like, if you have not played, I don't know why I love this so much, but if you have not played, I don't want to spoil this for you. So if you want to leave, I understand. But for the entire lifetime of Splatoon, here comes a spoiler, just last warning. The entire lifetime of Splatoon, people have been asking for Mario Sunshine references. They're like, oh, you know, put Mario in it. That's why, I'm sure that's why you ended up getting the Mario question, right?
Yeah.
Like, why can't Mario be in there?
Yeah.
We wanted the flood. You know, we've wanted anything Mario Sunshine related. In Splatoon 3, the third boss is Big Man, the Manta Ray. And when you fight him, his mechanics are the same as the Ghost Manta Ray from Mario Sunshine.
Yeah.
I lost it. I was like, this is the coolest thing. I was so happy.
Yeah.
We finally got our Mario Sunshine reference.
I wrote about this for Polygon because I was literally screaming as this came up. And it's also perfect because like 3D All-Stars came up, so maybe hopefully some of the younger Splatoon fans like got it. But I remember that boss or like that level because it was part of the, let's see here, I'm referencing my article here. The Serena Beach area it's called the Manta Storm. Literal stuff of my childhood nightmares. Like I had to get my older brother to beat it. Like that, and there was like this other cleaning up the beach level in that in that set of levels at the Serena Beach / the hotel. Like the worst. Like that's the funniest thing too, is like not only did they reference Mario Sunshine, they're like, oh no, like we're gonna like make you scream with this reference. Like we're gonna pick like one of the, you know. So
did you beat him?
Yeah.
So you had your redemption arc then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. It is, and it's honestly, it's a genuinely cute moment because it's like, oh yeah, like obviously like that game was hard for me. That level was hard for me as a child. Like some of these games were like kind of hard for adults. So like, it's like, I don't know, I was really young. I was probably like 6 or something. Like obviously playing it as a kid, it's going to be like really difficult. But now I can play games and they won't, you know, take me a single level.
That's so cool. The thing is, like, I don't like. I'm glad you brought up the Mario All-Stars thing because I'm like, will anyone get this? That's like, because I feel like, you know, Splatoon skews younger, right? I think that's reasonable to say. But But yeah, I was like, fine. What a cool, I did not expect that at all.
Yeah.
So it was a cool reference.
Okay, so one last question from
Sure.
chat. Do Octolings only live in Octo Valley because it looks like the Inklings live all over the planet and Shiver is from the Splatlands and doesn't look to be related to Octavio's regime? Shiver is kind of... Shiver and Fry and Big Man kind of introduce some change-ups in the world. Once again, I feel like that's not the question. But I am like, can we get eelings? Like, I want an eeling. Like, truly.
I think nothing's off the table. If you remember in Octo expansion, there was just a variety of different living sea life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think eels could happen. I don't know what would be next. They're not. They did tease that salmonids would be next multiple times in Splatoon 2.
Mm-hmm.
One of the final announcements they made was like a New Year's post, and it was like Happy New Year's or whatever. I think maybe there was like fireworks in the sky or something, but it had salmonids on their like salmon run beach like junkyard area, and the shadow of, I don't know if it was the shadow of the fireworks or whatever, but it spelled SOS at the bottom. So it was like, kind of like the salmonids were like, help us, right? Because remember, Mr. Grizz kind of was sketchy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what would be next, but anything's on the table if a salmon is.
Yeah. So then the Octolings, where do you know where they live? Are they allowed to live like anywhere now?
I assume they just live with everybody. So in the end of Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, they're just living with the Inklings now, right? The Octolings are. The Octarians, up until this point at least, they weren't really a focus. I mean, like they kind of got taken over, right?
And
in
the
Splatoon 3.
Octarians are the bad guy octopus.
Yes.
They're
the ones that look like tentacles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
the ones that look like
Octarians
tentacles.
are like the grunts. They're like the Goombas that you fight in Splatoon.
We found out, I don't remember when, but we found out that all of their little kettles that you like go into like their block worlds or whatever, those are where the humans have been living or were living. So that's why they all have Alterna? So Alterna is just one of like an ant farm of human, like they're all connected like little bubbles, right? They're all connected kind of like if you imagine like an ant farm, like where there's different pockets or whatever. Alterna is just kind of like, I would assume, the main one. But all of the different levels that we've been going to in all the different games, those are where the humans were living. And it's all underground. And so the Octarians took that over. And that's why all of them have those fake skies, because the fake skies are made out of the liquid crystals of the not inklings, just normal squids. Right? The LCDs. They were all made out of TVs or whatever. So yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does,
Both places, I guess.
Yeah, the question
both
was
in
Octolings.
the kettles.
Yeah.
Both in the kettles and both with everyone else. And then
I think the viewers are concerned that the Octolings are like mistreated in this universe, and like the answer is they sort of were. Yeah. But like now we don't think about that. It's fine. It's
That's where it's a fun video game comes in. It's like, I think they will touch on it for like, I think they will, but they just won't say the quiet part out loud, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's important to note that we can now be Octolings in Splatoon 3. Like, you can choose to be an Octoling, which is a nice little touch. Like, So, like, I guess they've achieved game character design parity with the Inklings at that point. So, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up the stream?
I mean, always, but I'll free you. You know what I mean?
No, it's fine. I mean, also, I don't know. Maybe I talk to Ben and we figure out and do like a proper, Splatoon. Maybe you, if the community wants, we could bring you for like an actual deepest dive on Splatoon 3.
Sure. And there's always the DLC too.
Yeah.
So that's coming. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm always down to talk Splatoon.
Yeah. So where can folks find you? Besides Inkopolis Square.
Twitter. My username is Taco, TAHK0. from there, I mean, like, that's kind of the main place. I will eventually. I've decided not too long ago that maybe it's time I actually do make YouTube videos. So you can it's my same username everywhere. You can find me on YouTube. There's nothing really there right now, except for I think there's like me crying over Sora getting announced for Smash. That's there if you want to see me cry. And then Twitch. Twitch is I'm going through all of the games that will be on my YouTube channel eventually, and I don't mean like playthroughs. Like I'll make I'll find a thesis statement right before I talk about whatever I talk about. And I'm going through all those games on Twitch. So really the main two places are Twitch and Twitter, and just TAHK0 Taco. That's it. That's where you can find me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, everyone give Taco a follow. And also thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today.
Thank you. This was awesome. Yeah, I could talk forever.
Yeah. Well, and I've been like a fan of your work for a while, and I just like, I don't know. I think lore is really fun. And that is the fun thing about it, is you just can kind of like go on and on and on. And like, even for a game like Splatoon. And so if, you know, from the community side, if this is something that you liked, if you're enjoyed, please let my almighty boss, Ben Hansen, know. Be like, we want like funny lore streams. Like this, and maybe we can like, you know, I don't know, either do it in the form of a deepest dive, or we like start expressively doing like more kind of like lore driven content, because I think that's really fun. But yeah, like, or if there's something that you didn't like about this, like if we're too non-linear with all the stuff, let me know, because I always want to improve this. So thank you so much for everyone hanging out tonight, and I hope y'all have a lovely night and rest of your week.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up and inviting me.
If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.